Hello guys, welcome back to the story of Mago 1 and After the King, the Priest and the Girl. 3 very positive and very likable, lovable characters. 3 positive characters, outstanding characters of their age and their environment, and also of our common collective history. 3 positive key figures. We have to face a 4th one too, the beast. The beast of this age and the beast of this grand story, the big story. The beast. The beast can be an abstract notion, meaning and referring to the beast nature, the lower nature, the bad, the heavy nature of us all individually. We all have the beast. There's no escaping this. We all have the beast side, because this is what this paradigm is about. To have that, it comes with the heaviness of the body and going so deep into materialism, obviously, and falling into the body trap, the physical illusion trap of the world. But this is a learning process, and this is what we're here for. So we have to recognize our own beast, inner beast, in order to be able to, and have the right to recognize and pinpoint and acquit and absolve the evil, the beast outside. But we must do this. This is essential that we do this to purge ourselves, and with peaceful, good ways help purge the world of darkness and base nature, lower nature, and you know what we call bad and sin and darkness and evil and crime. You know, it's a program, it's a misprogram, it's not the original program of life. This beast nature, the parasitic nature, it's the heaviness of the ego, I guess, of individual ego, which came with having individual bodies and having the illusion of the break between female and male because of the body. That's why we're in this trap, this kind of schizophrenia of patriarchy, which is, as I said, it's a misprogram. It's basically, a lot of times I realize it comes with ignorance. We're ignorant of our own higher nature, and we're ignorant of so many key things. Identity and analogy. Actually, the unity. We're ignorant of the unity of all, the basic, ultimate law, the unity. And the best symbol of unity, and the only symbol of unity, grand unity, is the mug, the seed, as you see on my logo. It's the sign, it's the seed. So how did we get here? So misprogrammation of the seed resulted in patriarchy and the Great Conspiracy, and this is what we call the beast in history. And this great beast, the conspiracy, is basically it's a golem, misprogrammed golem, made up of living atoms of people. People make up this body of the beast, but ultimately, there is responsibility, but nobody has the right to judge, only God. But justice must be done and the truth must be told, and so there are faces and names within this great beast of the conspiracy, but ultimately it's based on a misprogram. So to pull the plug is not to call out names and faces, although it's kind of evident that if everything is clear suddenly, then it will all be clear. And it's all clear anyway, there's no hiding before God. And so again, I'm really wandering around in my own head alone with you, camera. So just moralizing, I guess, and convicting and acquitting and absolving finally the murderers. But the first step is that things have to be called what they are. Truth must be told. And so there are names and faces in the misprogrammed golem of the great beast, which is the great conspiracy of colonial patriarchy, as we already well know. So one of the names and faces in this, the great beast, is this here famous lady. And she's a definite name and face in the story of the great beast, and she's an agent of the great beast. An agent of the great beast. She is a beast herself, and she is the agent of the great beast. An important one too. She's like a Matahari of her age in a way. And her name is Beatrice of Aragon. So the Mona Lisa is Mona Lisa, I mean the woman that we call Mona Lisa, that was painted by Leonardo da Vinci, the greatest genius of his age, greatest painter, in 1503, which is 13 years after King Matthias of Hungary died, and as we know, he was killed, assassinated. 13 years later, Leonardo painted the Mona Lisa, or call her whatever you will, La Gioconda. But she's an unknown, unidentified flying object, again, just like Botticelli's Man with Medal. We don't know who the Mona Lisa is, but 13 years after the death of the King of Hungary, Leonardo... Hi people, so short technical readjustment, and so the sentence was something like 13 years after the assassination of the King of Hungary. In 1503, Leonardo paints this woman that we call Mona Lisa, and it's obviously very conscious coding and messaging to the future. Hello future, wake up. This is a murderer, this is a case, this is what happened. This is what happened. Now this is what happened. Then this is what is happening in this paradigm. It's a criminal paradigm. It's a paradigm headed and led and ruled by criminals. We have to put this lady, Leonardo's Mona Lisa, on a pedestal and call her what she was, call her by her name, and call out her deed, which has not been uncovered since and yet, and let the truth be revealed. And let the truth be revealed to our collective absolution. Because in a paradigm of murder, everybody is victim and murderer at the same time, because we're connected. So in order to be liberated and free from guilt, we need to clarify things between ourselves. And so let's clarify the story of the beast, the greater beast made up of smaller beasts. And so this beast is a smaller beast, is a particle, an atom of the greater beast, and her name is Beatrice of Aragon, that Leonardo painted fully consciously. So in the Beast, Book of the Beast, chapter 1 is the smiling murderer. Beatrice, so here I'm just quoting from the book, because it's factual. Okay, actually, like, big part of it is research factual, so this is first time you're ever gonna hear these things, especially as related to the most famous painting of all time, the mysterious Mona Lisa. So this is who she was. Beatrice of Aragon, 1457 to 1508. Was the daughter of the mad and bloody king of Naples. She became the wife, and many believe the assassin, of Matthias, king of Hungary. From the chronicles, she appears as a charming, mesmerizing bitch, one of the most intelligent and amusing women of her time, yet an awful person. If Simonetta was a saint, Beatrice was a sinner. She was a secret agent, manipulator and schemer, then murderer, widow, then scorned woman, fallen celebrity, and finally an outcast. It is at this final stage, 5 years before her death, that she was painted by Leonardo, or although perhaps not for the first time. In the painting, she wears her immovable mask of the pious queen, the loving, caring wife, the innocent, mourning widow. This is her official mask, which she never took off. She never admitted anything and got away. The great painter hid the greatest crime of the age, perhaps the greatest crime in history since the assassination of Jesus and Attila, since Matthias was a leader on their level of power and influence. The revealed true story of Beatrice adds a final piece of evidence to our understanding and vision of the dark side of history and its specific events, and may change the entire course of this history altogether, inshallah. Let this change the course of our manipulative, degenerating history. In 1503, at the time of sitting for the painting, Beatrice was 46, a fallen woman and fallen political player. At the same time, she was a cynical, smiling murderer, getting away with her terrible crime, the heartless person, never regretting her sin. This is who we are talking about. La Gioconda, the Jocund, joyous, happy one, is an ironic title. The irony is so strong, and the 13 years are so ominous, that one might wonder if Leonardo himself was not the one initiating the birth of the portrait, if he himself did not specifically want to paint the murderer of his so beloved and respected king. If 13 years after the assassination, the loyal and still traumatized friend Leonardo did not want to convict the assassin, at least on the divine and sublime level of art, coding the truth and justice for the future. The name Mona Lisa is a false name. Okay. Leonardo used the smoky, shady sfumato technique to give his subject the veil of mystery, a dark veil under which nothing is what it seems. In fact, everything is the opposite of what it seems. And indeed, what a mystery! La Gioconda veils a true story of war, conspiracy, and murder. a picture of the great dark mechanism of history overwritten by the winners, and the personal sad end of a used and discarded agent. She was used as a hitwoman, but of course she was well paid, having been the celebrated and spoiled wife of the greatest king of the age for 14 years, and even in her retirement, she should have had no care other than her broken ego and looming conscience. Okay. Okay, Beatrice was already a killer at the age of 18. Engaged to the king of Hungary, Matthias, she strangled her Neapolitan lover with a lyre string in bed. This is actually chronicled. It's fact. Here she is, proud and regal, in the Regiomontanus Corvina. Yes, right. This happened in 1475 when she was 18, year after she was officially engaged to Matthias Corvinus, king of Hungary. Okay. A murderous queen who doesn't blink an eye, backed by the dark powers of Europe, veiled in the mist of mystery. Yes, this is a topic worthy of Leonardo the Master. Chapter 2, Murderous Blood. So we already talked about the fake nobility, fake aristocracy, fake leadership, forged leadership all over Europe, already in the hands of the bankers and their network, the dark network that we call the Great Conspiracies. So these guys are already sitting on thrones, and they're like pure evil, sheer evil. And so murderous blood of Beatrice refers to the bloodline that she actually came from, very specifically. Okay. Beatrice was 8 when she lost her mother, the noble Isabella of Clermont. Okay. On her father's side, she was born into bloody origins, a family heavily burdened with vice. Her father was King Ferdinand of Naples, a real psychopath from one of the newly appearing self-appointed evil dynasties of Europe, the House of Trastamara. This clan appeared in the 14th century, a new self-made dynasty on the throne of Castile and Leon. Their appearance is within the same wave as the appearance of the Habsburgs in the 13th century in Austria, with fake identification, false name and covert motives, and the same racial, genetic background and coding. So we must clarify that the Aragonian royal house was definitely... I don't want to go there. As were the Medicis, Habsburgs, Fuggers, Rothschilds, and Rockefellers. There is by no means any real responsible, national, popular, indigenous conscience. On the contrary, the mentality and program is strictly parasitic. The Trastamara Foundation story was this: the king's illegitimate son murdered the legitimate son after the legitimate son's mother killed the illegitimate son's mother. This is the foundation story of this dynasty, the Trastamara. Very beautiful, indeed. This gruesome tale was the source of the monstrous dynasty. This initial double act of homicide was the stamp on their psyche, their crest. No life, no blood is too much for the gaining, keeping, and increasing of power. Most power for the least virtuous. The dynasty gained power in Aragon too, and from this house came both Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon, who married in 1469 and who together took great measures towards the final centralization of Hispanic regions and politics, the homogenization of religion, and colonization of further continents. With the bloodbath, rape, and robbery of the Americas began the submission of the entire globe to the evil greed and ruthless expansion of the great conspiring mafia, conspiring mafia, of which the rulers of Spain were one branch. The dark Trastamara couple, calling themselves cynically the Catholic monarchs, were becoming the definitive factor of Europe and the world. So much blood and criminality is on their hands. Their guilt is beyond measure. This wholly immoral and unworthy King Ferdinand was the uncle of Beatrice. In Italy, the House of Aragon was under Medici influence. They were parts of the same evil network, gaining power all over the continent, but the Medicis were higher in their hierarchy, and the Habsburgs and the Fuggers were higher than the Medicis. Okay. Who knows who were and are above them, the real dark masterminds. So the apparently royal family were forged aristocracy, unmerited, criminal children of the great beast, parts of the conspiracy, pawns of the greater will and plan of the dark deconstructive power and consciousness raging behind, over, and through them. So we're talking about a young woman from this family called Beatrice, already born into like really dark, bad karma. Her father, the psychopath Ferdinand or Ferrante, the first of Naples, Don Ferrante. Here we go. Check him out. Don Ferrante was his name. From the dark and murderous Trastamara dynasty, as we said. Psycho. He's a psycho. He's the king of Naples. Get it? Got it? Napolitani. Where are you? This is a psycho ruling over Naples already in the 15th century. Usurping power, right? Usurping power. With much blood on his hand and the treasure. Okay, guys, so back here, after battery change, talking about blood and gold going together. The father of Beatrice of Aragon is this King of Naples, Don Ferrante, who is the mafia lord of Naples at this time. Beatrice's father, Ferdinando Trastamara, he himself was a bastard son of the previous king, who then, after the death of his wife, who was the mother of Beatrice, 12 years after 12 years of widowhood, he married his cousin, okay, who was 31 years younger than himself. So this is Papa, this is Daddy. This is the daddy of our beast. Ferdinand was a politically adept but completely ruthless evil king. He maintained power by treachery, this is a quote, yeah, by treachery, often imprisoning and executing his enemies. As an example of his not only antisocial but common criminal and psychopathic character, on one occasion he invited many of his enemies to a banquet supposedly to celebrate a peace agreement. However, at the banquet's conclusion, many of the guests were gruesomely murdered. They lost their head. Some were fed to the crocodiles that guarded the castle's moat. The bodies of others were mummified so that Ferrante could display the corpses dressed in their usual costumes in the local dungeon. Whew! Even during Ferrante's time, such disrespectful treatment of one's enemies was considered unacceptable, unquote. So deceit, cruelty, torturing, killing were casual tools of his power. He was a real sadist weirdo, a psychopathic murderer. This is my text. He liked to surround himself with his enemies, both dead and alive. It's a real psychiatric case. Okay, I'm not going to go any further into this. Selfish, ruthless, I mean, you know, really sicko. And this is the Papa, this is the daddy. Beatrice was true to the paternal heritage. She was an evil trickster herself, but she was clearly intensely backed, moved, and used by the higher dark lords of Europe, the greater beast. Okay, the center of the world's dark conscience. Mona Lisa is the icon of guilt. This is a really nice and and sensational thing. So the Mona Lisa here, the Mona Lisa is the icon of guilt. 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 You see no guilt on her face. She says, I don't regret anything. The Mona Lisa had very much to regret, though. She was Judas, but she not only betrayed the good king, but tricked and poisoned him for years and finally killed him. And indeed, the analogy stands. Matthias died during the commemoration of the death of Jesus. Okay, so Matthias chose Beatrice to be his wife. Okay. There was a picture, an ominous picture, which Leonardo painted, that he talks about in his notebooks. Picture had to be painted between the king's engagement and his wedding, between 74 and 76, and must have been presented by Leonardo to King Matthias on his birthday, 24th of February, 75 or 76. So there is a painting that Leonardo talks about that he paints for the king, Matthias, the Hungarian king, of his beloved. And we don't know where this picture is, but he does talk about it. Leonardo does. So, chapter 3, Wedding with the King of Hungary. The wedding of Beatrice and Matthias took place in 1476, the same year that Simonetta died and Dominicus rose into position. Same year. Before leaving her city, Naples, Beatrice rode through the streets in her gorgeously decorated chariot. This is Naples at the time. So she goes to Hungary from the Neapolitan court by a glorious Hungarian delegation. The road to Hungary took 3.5 months. Beatrice is known to have stopped for shopping in Venice. Perhaps she also got some of the city's specialty, poison. Venice was known for its sophisticated chemical venoms, specialized in killing without effort and without leaving a trace. Very popular goods among the power-hungry. The preparations and the orchestration of the great Renaissance wedding were worthy of King Matthias, Il Magnifico, the Renaissance Sun King. Chronicles recount that a Neapolitan princess was awaited on the border of the kingdom by the 20 most noble aristocratic ladies, led by the king's mother. Beatrice and her entourage arrived at Fehér, blah, blah. Okay, so it was like a huge, huge Renaissance production that Matthias orchestrated for the wedding of his wife, who was to become a beast and who was to become his murderer. Okay, Beatrice had to be crowned. In the meantime, celebrations were taking place with holy services, chivalric tournaments, great feasts, and merriment. Next day they proceeded to Buda. The magnificent wedding took place on 22nd of December 1476 in Buda, capital of Hungary. King Matthias was 33, Beatrice of Aragon 19. Descriptions of the grand Renaissance wedding. Ceremonial chariot, Renaissance art, symbology, decoration, humanist high meaning, and magic. The mage King Matthias, the mage priest Dominicus, and the white brothers and sisters surely performed ritual magic for the marriage to be a successful one, to bring blessing and blossoming to the country and the world. Right indeed, yeah. It brought curse and destruction in the short run. In the long run, however, okay, Falcon's Eye. Okay, so yeah, it did bring destruction, complete destruction. How ironic. Wedding pure light with pure darkness, yeah. The court, clergy, and nobility, black army, all the good people of the kingdom happily cheered and blessed the marriage, welcomed the queen, and was happy for the king. all the hope that this marriage would secure the kingdom, would help the kingdom resist the floods of darkness, all that hope was to be crushed within 14 years. The queen, so gladly and generously welcomed, would kill the king and let the Dark Empire take over Hungary, the last bastion of light in Europe. She brought doom to the kingdom. From the very first moment she was an agent, a smiling murderer in waiting, and constantly reporting. How could Matthias be so naive? Or was he? Okay, 24-course feast and weeks of merriment during the great Renaissance wedding in the Hungarian royal capital, Buda. 12 or 14 courses long, Renaissance picture of merriment and production. Okay, white marble relief of the king and the queen, and she followed him everywhere, and she went everywhere with him, and she was like a very bad influence on him, and also spying, constantly spying, going around with him, and then reporting to, obviously, to the other side, and specifically to the arch enemy of Matthias, who was the king of Europe, Friedrich Habsburg. She was reporting, obviously, to the Habsburg, which is like the height of, they were on top, on top of even the Italian, the Neapolitan and Florentine and etc. mafia, the Habsburgs, politically. So, chapter 4, I'm not going to show you the bitch. The Italian chroniclers say she was good-looking, intelligent, and eloquent in speech. Eloquent. She accompanied Matthias on several of his campaigns, like the Austrian War. Spent every night together. She was a spy, continuously reported. Okay. They spend every minute together. She follows him even into the military camp. Matthias is in love with his lady, her erudition, liberal, life affirmation, whole being. Okay. But she soon flashed her teeth, as we say, and expressed her contempt for the Hungarians. And soon the Hungarians grew to dislike her. She was arrogant, a wholly unholy, a power-driven evil bitch. Beatrice the arrogant, she should have been called. Okay, intrigue was her game. Intrigue, the black magic tool of the conspiracy, gained their very power by... gained their power by dishonesty. The mafia, to spy, to lie, to spread bad word, to manipulate, also to magnify, idealize, and forge identities, motives, and aims, to weave a dark emotional, mental, and even physical spiderweb of forceful taking of power and energy. This is intrigue. Okay, politics and the history and the wars. I'm not going to go into it, but it's like it's a high time of political struggle and physical struggle, war, like bloodshed. In the midst of all of this, Beatrice is from the other side, obviously, so she's the enemy, undercover. Okay, the question of heredity was the major issue of the kingdom, key to its survival, but Beatrice bore no child. It was a personal tragedy for Matthias and the nation. But it also presented a serious and cardinal political problem, because according to the agreement with the evil Emperor Frederick, which they reached over the Holy Crown dispute, if Matthias died without a legal heir, the Habsburgs could claim the Hungarian throne. So this is where the key thing is. Beatrice was barren. Why? We cannot know. Perhaps, okay. But the point is, she did not produce an heir, which means the king will die without an heir, and then the throne will go back to the Habsburgs, which is catastrophe. It's the end. Instead of giving the king and the kingdom heirs, the woman kept scheming against the beloved illegitimate son János Corvin. Okay. She even forges a letter to cut the marriage negotiations between her hated stepson and the Milanese Sforzas. Okay, blah blah. So his death becomes urgent. Matthias makes the final decision and effort to legitimize his son, and also militarily and politically, diplomatically, almost reaching the throne of Europe, which is the Jesus, I'm sorry, it's late. The imperial throne, which is the German Roman or Holy Roman Emperor's throne, which is the head, the leadership of Europe, and it was in the wrong hands, obviously, and it should have been in the right hand, but that never happened because his death becomes urgent, very urgent. Chapter 5, the assassination and the fall. Here's another image of the same marble. Picture of the woman, assassin of the king and his kingdom. Yes. So Beatrice is highly suspected to have gradually poisoned her husband over the years, but his life force and his will was so strong he fought long until the end. Some clairvoyants could foresee the death of the king and the approaching dark age, but several people, the agents of the approaching dark age, knew for a fact of the approaching death in advance and were alert and ready to take over the king's power and the kingdom. Right before the ominous event of the death took place, Habsburg Friedrich, Holy Roman Emperor, broke off the peace negotiations with Matthias that were so important to him before, unexpectedly and with inexplicable abruptness. Friedrich had the king watched, probably by several pairs of evil eyes. His key spying agent was Beatrice. Okay. His son Maximilian had his army mobilized and alarmed, ready to invade the country from one day to the other in case the king died. Why would he die at the age of 47, right? And indeed, as soon as he died, Maximilian was on the borders of the country with superhuman swiftness, or subhuman, one might notice. Behind the murder, there is obviously the Habsburg house. Okay. His only motivation and interest towards Matthias was to get rid of him. Okay, one wonders where were the people of Europe when these things happened above their heads. Yeah, so behind the death, clearly the emperor, Habsburg aim and collective aim of the dark side is, yes, very same thing happened to the Native Americans and all the indigenous nations colonized later, truly colonized, truly subordinated. Yes, removing the king's, yes, shortly before the king's planned death, the queen insisted on removing the king's private doctor, the good and trusted Julius Emilius. This is another piece of evidence that proves Beatrice was first-hand manipulating the health of Matthias. Her intrigue and demand against the doctor was so intense that Matthias resigned from his will and let his wife bring a new Italian doctor who did not know him and whom he did not trust. But if the queen insisted on something, it had to be. This happened in 1489. From this point, the king fell incurably ill. Okay, after 32 years of most successful, glorious, and honorable rule, in 1490, at Easter time, the king must finally die. The assassination by poisoning was the typical method of the age, and the perpetrators. Venice was the city of poison, yes. He was being continuously poisoned. Bonfini recounts the gruesome process of the king's death. Okay, then the scene when she goes to him pretending to help him. She tugs at his ears, fingers, hair to resuscitate him. Then he ties his arms, hands, legs as they do in such shouts and it's like a crazy scene. The knight passes in maddening pains. The king roars so loud his voice is heard across the thick walls all over the area. Beatrice is practically guarding the king. Nobody can near him. The next day she pours the medicinal liquid into him again. Medicinal. Just to be sure, in his last hours the king is conscious. So he struggles for days after being poisoned by the woman. And then finally dies in unbearable pain. Basically, I guess the poison burns him inside alive. After the king's death, the pitiable bestial nature of Beatrice is to come out. She desperately tries to find supporters for her claim to the Hungarian throne. With scheming, corruption, and political blackmail, she gets some supporters behind her. She ultimately falls out of power. Anything was possible now with scheming, poison, money, and force. Her eyes are the eyes of dark conscience and consciousness. She is the beast embodiment of the greater beast with the conspiracy behind her. Simonetta was much more than the victim of a love murder, so Beatrice is also much more than a political murderer. The beast was not only a killer, she was the killer of her own husband, a traitor of a king, a traitor of an entire nation. Okay, so treason is a big question in this paradigm. Traitors, abound. Traitors rule. Treason, just like the treason of Cain, ending up as the murder of Abel by Cain. So treason is almost equivalent to murder. The picture was painted sometime in 1503, exactly 13 years after the king's death, 5 years before her own death. The same year that the priest died. That's when the picture was painted by Leonardo. Okay, important thing. Sorry, I'm skipping over a ton of evidence. The deceitful Beatrice failed to acquire the Hungarian throne. The Pope convicts her. She goes through all sorts of humiliations and in the end, shamefully returns home in 1501. It is ironic how the greater beast uses its children until they fulfill their dark role and then gets rid of them. The Medicis were also soon to be eaten by their stronger allies, just like all the formations, dynasties, figures, even empires were to be sacrificed for the new formations of the beast. This we can also observe today as empires rise and fall in the same hand by the same program. The Habsburgs had to fall to give way to new, updated political forms of intrigue and deception, and even the United States of America will most likely be sacrificed by its own founders to make way for even a yet newer force of global parasitism and poison. So, the Mona Lisa, our heroine here now, from Beast, she almost becomes a heroine now because she becomes an underdog herself. She returns to Naples humiliated, where she is soon to suffer the fall of the House of Aragon as well. Now all she lives for is the hopeless battle to retrieve her dowry. She signs her letters as Infelicissima Regina, the most unfortunate or most unhappy queen. Death will find her soon, at the age of 50, far from her glorious, rich, queenly court, poor and lowly. September 23, 1508, in Naples. This picture was painted sometime in 1503, exactly 13 years after the king's death. Yes. Chapter 6, Dirty Times. Francois Villon is a great bard of this, and yes, these were really like dirty times, the beginning of the really dark, dirty times, end of the 15th century, exactly when the Americas were being colonized. Okay, so spectacular separation between good and bad. Villon, Bosch show us. Yeah, you know, one of the six Borgia popes, and then the Medici popes. Giovanni de Medici, Pope Leo X, who bought his papal position for the equivalent of about $5 billion US. Woo! Giulio de Medici, Pope Clement VII, illegitimate son of the man who killed Simonetta. And for real, these guys were popes, like, wow, seriously. Darkness reached a breaking point in the Middle Ages. Okay, attempted escape from guilt, attempted breakthrough to mercy. How could the indigenous people of Europe themselves degenerate so much that they let such a beast of a forged royalty overtake the mastery of the house? This is colonialism. Same in all continents. The global collective court case against the current rulers and ruling systems of power. Instead of convicting Beatrice, let us try to release her, indeed. Okay. Perhaps the Mona Lisa will now cooperate with the king, the priest, and the girl and give herself as evidence to have her guilty soul released from the frozen posture and stiffened mask of the smiling murderer. Chapter 7. America founded with the wealth looted and maps stolen from the Hungarian kingdom? Question. Chain of dark events after 1490. I will spare you this part. If the cardinal constellation is false, the entire mission will be false. All narrative, discourse, and media connected with the venture will be false. Talking about the colonization of the Americas. True dark news. Okay, dark news. Direct causal connection between the death of the king and the fall of Hungary and the colonization of the Americas. Physical causality between one treasury being emptied in Central Europe in 1490 and another treasury being suddenly full in Western Europe in 1492. Could it be possible that the fate of the looted national wealth, treasure, books, and secret documents of the kingdom are in very direct connection with the greatest business venture of the age, the colonization of the Americas? Discovery, conquest, it's a bloody colonization of the Americas from 1492 and of the whole planeta Gaia. Okay, the dollar, the US dollar, and the Hungarian taler, which was a silver coin originally worth 1 gold forint, in general use between the 15th and the 19th centuries. Our story here is only the beginning of the avalanche of revelations to follow. There is an even bigger picture behind all of this. Okay, divine origin, fall, to learn, fight, incorporate, and transform the laws and ways of material and speculative power. Unconditional love, fully immaterial and non-speculative power, the source energy. Botticelli's Slander of Apelles, famous painting, with a naked figure of truth on the periphery. Through the mind, full of total revision, reconstruction, reparation, back to happiness. Okay, this is moralizing already. Moralizing at the very end. And so this is the story of the Mona Lisa, who is the beast, children of the greater beast. And so let it be revealed who the Mona Lisa is. Beatrice of Aragon, Killer Queen. And at the very, very end of this, I wanted to read to you from the book of Revelation in the Bible, which is, highly recommended to anybody, everybody. It's a beautiful read, and it's initiative text. And in this, it will be just homework now. Read chapter 13. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. I will not read it any further. Please do read it for yourself to see the reality and raw and meaning and fate of the beast that the Bible is talking about. And this greater beast is made up of small beasts, and small beasts are made up of even smaller particles of bad and dark and shadow that is in all of us. So it's individual responsibility to uproot the beast in us, and to heal the wrong programs, and to heal ourselves and our units and communities. But it's also, it's collective responsibility to put things right collectively in the meta-narrative, in our narrative, in our shared narrative of our life, and our little stories and our bigger stories, such as history, his and her story. So we need to talk about these things, and we need to think about these things. So please do accept my humble offering of truth, that Mago 1 ends with the beast being revealed, the Mona Lisa being Beatrice of Aragon, killer queen of the high Renaissance, and the big secret that Leonardo left for us to unwrap as a special gift after 500 years of truth being covered and veiled. So please do accept and enjoy. And let this be, let this sprout and benefit all of us, the truth. Thanks, bye.